In this video, we will study a very interesting game in which you will learn how white uses very simple moves in the London Jobava system. The game began with the moves d4, d5. Now, white played knight c3, using the Verisov system. White doesn't want to attack in the center with the move c4, but instead prepares to attack in the center with the move e4. Black played knight f6, developing his king's knight and increasing his control over the e4 square. White played bishop f4, transposing toward the London Jobava system. White develops his queen-bishop toward a good diagonal, aiming for the c7 pawn. Now, black has to play carefully. For example, the move knight c6 would be a mistake, since white responds with knight b5, threatening to capture the c7 pawn. Black has no good way to defend his pawn, and white is winning. After, for example, e5, white plays bishop takes e5, capturing the black pawn and threatening to invade with his knight on the c7 square. Black can play knight takes e5, eliminating the enemy bishop, but white plays d takes e5, and black knight is attacked. White has won a pawn, retains the initiative, and has an advantage. After, for example, knight g4, to defend the knight and try to capture the e5 pawn, white plays queen takes d5 and is winning. After queen takes d5, white plays knight takes c7, check, then captures the queen, and white wins. After the move bishop f4, black can play a6, taking control of the b5 square, to prevent white's knight from reaching that square. White can play knight f3, developing his king-knight. Now, attacking in the center is not a good move, as white plays d to c5, capturing the black pawn. The queen and knight control the d4 square, and the black pawn cannot advance. White has won a pawn and could even keep it with moves like knight a4, c3, b4, etc., and white has an advantage. After the move knight f3, the correct move for black is e6, freeing up the passage to the king's bishop and preparing the break in the center with c5. White can play e3, connecting his pawns. Black can play knight b to d7, developing his queen-knight. White can play bishop e2, completing the development of his minor pieces and preparing to castle. Black can play bishop e7, developing his king-knight and preparing to castle. Black can castle kingside, play moves like b6, bishop b7, c5, etc., and the position is more or less equal. In the game, after the move bishop f4, black played c5, immediately attacking the opponent's pawn center. Now, a knight on b5, threatening to capture the c7 pawn, wouldn't be a good move, because black plays queen a5, check, and the white knight has to retreat to avoid being captured. After knight c3, to defend the knight, black can play c takes d4. After queen takes d4, black plays knight c6, developing the queen's knight and attacking the opponent's queen. Black can play e5 to occupy the center with his pawns, giving him an advantage. After the move c5, white can play e3, connecting his pawns and freeing up the passage for the king's bishop. The game would be more or less balanced. In the game, after the move c5, white played e4, attacking in the center, with the idea of taking the initiative. If black now captures on e4 with the pawn, white can play d takes c5, capturing the white pawn and recovering the material. Black can play queen takes d1, check, exchanging queens. After rook takes d1, white can perform the knight g to e2 maneuver to move his knight to the g3 square and put pressure on the e4 pawn, which could be vulnerable. White can also advance with his pawn majority on the queen side, with b4, a3, etc., and have an advantage. In the game after the e4 move, black played knight takes e4, capturing the black pawn with the knight. White played knight takes e4, eliminating the enemy knight from the center. After d takes e4, white played d takes c5, recovering material. If black now plays queen a5, check, white can play c3. After queen takes c5, white can play queen a4, check, with the idea of capturing the e4 pawn and recovering material. After, for example, knight c6, white can play queen takes e4, regaining the pawn and restoring material balance. White can continue with moves like knight f3, bishop e2, and short castling, and has good play. In the game, after the move d takes c5, black played queen takes d1, check, and exchanged queens. After rook takes d1, black played knight c6, developing the queen s knight. White played bishop e5, developing his king s bishop and pinning the enemy knight. Black played bishop d7, unpinning his knight and strengthening his defense. White played knight e2, completing the development of his minor pieces and preparing to castle. Black played bishop e6, freeing up his king s bishop and threatening to capture the c5 pawn. White played bishop e3 to defend the c5 pawn. Black played a6, attacking the opposing bishop, with the aim of expelling it and forcing it to retreat. White played bishop a4 to preserve his bishop. Black played rook c8, activating his queen rook and targeting the c5 pawn. White castled. Black played bishop e7, completing the development of his minor pieces. However, the black king cannot castle because the bishop on d7 would be lost. White played b4, beginning to advance with his queenside pawn majority and strengthening the defense of the c5 pawn. Now, it would be a mistake to capture the pawn with knight takes b4, since white plays bishop takes d7, check, and white wins. After the move b4, it would also be unwise to play a5, attacking against white's pawn chain, since white can respond with b5, advancing his queenside pawns and threatening to capture the opponent's knight. If black now plays knight a7, white can play a rook takes d7, sacrificing the exchange and forcing the opponent king to remain in the center. After king takes d7, white plays rook d1, check, incorporating his rook into the attack. After king e8, white plays c6, continuing to advance his queenside pawns and freeing up his bishop on e3. Black's knight is attacked, and white is winning. After the move b5, black can attempt knight e5, but white plays rook takes d7, sacrificing the exchange anyway. After knight takes d7, white plays b6, advancing his queenside pawns and pinning the opponent knight. Black cannot castle, as this would result in the loss of his knight. After, for example, bishop takes c5, white plays rook d1, bringing the rook into the attack and threatening to capture the opponent's knight. White has an advantage. For example, after bishop takes e3, white plays bishop takes d7, check. King e7. Bishop takes c8, capturing the opponent rook. After rook takes c8, white plays f takes e3 and has won a piece. Black can play rook takes c2, capturing a pawn, invading with the rook on the second rank, and threatening to capture the opponent's knight. White can play knight d4, defending the knight and threatening to capture the opponent's rook. After rook takes a2, white can play knight c6, check. After b takes c6, white plays rook b1 and wins, as he can advance his pawn to queen, and white wins. In the game, after the move b4, black played knight e5, intending to exchange the light-squared bishops and try to free up his position. White played rook takes d7, sacrificing the exchange. Black played knight takes d7. White played rook d1, incorporating his rook into the attack and threatening to capture the opponent's knight, which is pinned. Black played rook d8, reinforcing the defense of his knight to prevent it from being captured. White played bishop f4, intending to invade with his bishop on the c7 square and attack the opponent's queen. Black played bishop f6, intending to continue with king e7, to escape the pin. White played bishop c7, invading with his bishop on the opponent's side of the board and threatening to capture the opponent's rook. It is not possible to retreat the rook, for example, with the move rook c8, since white plays bishop d7, check, and white wins. In the game, after the move bishop c7, black played king e7, escaping the pin and returning the exchange, with the aim of repelling the opponent's attack. Now, instead of capturing the opponent's rook, white played bishop d6, check, to force the black king to the back rank and prevent the rook on h8 from entering the game. Black played king e8. White played knight g3, activating the knight and threatening to capture the e4 pawn. The black king cannot castle, and the black pieces can barely move. White has a clear strategic advantage. Now, black played bishop c3, with the aim of capturing the b4 pawn. White played knight takes e4, capturing the opponent's central pawn and threatening to capture the opponent's bishop. Black played bishop takes b4. White played c6, continuing to advance his queenside pawns, attacking the opponent's knight and also threatening to capture the bishop on b4. If black now plays bishop takes d6, white can play knight takes d6, check. After king e7, white plays c takes d7, capturing the opponent's knight. Black can play b5 to block the opponent's bishop and try to capture the d7 pawn. But white, before retreating his bishop, can play knight c8, check, with the aim of defending the d7 pawn with his rook. After king f6, white plays bishop b3, defending his bishop. White can continue with the maneuver knight a7 and knight c6 to break the blockade and, finally, promote his pawn. After the move c6, black can play b takes c6, capturing the white pawn. White can play bishop takes b4. Black can play knight b8, defending the c6 pawn and freeing up the rook and threatening to capture the white rook. White can play knight d6, check. After, for example, king d7, white can play knight takes f7, check. After king c8, white plays rook takes d8, check. After rook takes c8. Knight takes c8. King takes c8. White is a piece up and has a decisive advantage. In the game, after the move c6, black played b5, blocking the opposing bishop action in an attempt to escape the pressure. White played bishop takes b4, capturing the enemy bishop. If black now plays b takes a4, white can play knight d6, check, and after king e7, white can play knight b7, a discovered check. After king f6, white plays knight takes d8, capturing the black rook. After rook takes d8, white plays c takes d7, and white has a decisive advantage. In the game after bishop takes b4, black played knight e5, aiming to capture the c6 pawn. At the same time, black frees up his rook action and is threatening to capture the white rook. White played knight d6, check. If black now plays king e7, white can play knight b7, discovered check. After king f6, white plays rook takes d8. After rook takes d8, white plays knight takes d8. White easily wins the game. After the move knight d6, check, black played rook takes d6, surrendering the exchange, in an attempt to defend. The game continued rook takes d6. If black now plays b takes a4, capturing the opponent's bishop. White plays c7, threatening to promote the pawn, and white is winning. Black can try king e7 to prevent the white pawn from promoting with his rook. But white can play rook d8, discovered check, and blocking the opponent's rook's action. White will be able to promote his pawn and have a decisive advantage. In the game, after the move rook takes d6, black played knight c4, attacking the opponent's rook. White played rook d4, and black resigned. Since white is threatening to advance his pawn to promote, black is undefended. For example, if b takes a4, white plays c7, threatening to promote his pawn. After knight b6, to prevent the pawn from promoting, white plays rook d8, checkmate. A very instructive game. Now that you know how to make simple moves in the London Jobava system, there's one more video you should watch, but almost no one will tell you about it. Click on the following video so you can complete your training. See you in the next video.